Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends. In the previous video, we have seen the mathematical definition of non-deterministic finite automata. Now, let's solve a few questions using non-deterministic finite automata, that is NFA. Let's see the first one. Now, again the input alphabet is taken 0 and 1. We are trying to accept the strings which starts with 0. Initial state is Q0. On a 0, we will go to Q1, which is a final state. Now after this, whether 0 or 1 arrives, it doesn't matter. You see here from Q0, we have no transition on 1. This means that whenever the string starts with anything other than 0, it will be rejected because this is a dead configuration. Let's see, this is again mathematically Q, sigma, delta, Q0 and F as the definition goes. Q0 and Q1. Input alphabet 0 and 1. Delta is a transition function. Let's map to a table. Q0 and Q1. Here the initial state is Q0 and the final state is Q1. On 0 and 1. On 0 we have a transition from Q0 to Q1. But on 1 there is no transition. This is represented using symbol phi, which is null. That means this is a dead configuration. From Q0, whether it is a 0 or a 1, we have a transition for Q1. So we have seen it for the given NFA, we have defined Q, we have defined sigma, we have defined delta using the table. Q0 is marked as initial state and F is the final state, that is Q1 here. With this, we have solved one example of NFA. Now let's see a few more. This is again an example over 0 and 1 as the alphabet. Now we are accepting those strings which contain 0. It necessarily does not start with a 0, but it may have 0 somewhere in between. So Q0 is the initial state. Now on a 0, it will go to the final state Q1. Unless it is not getting a 0, it can wait here and keep remembering that it has seen only 1. The moment it sees the first 0, it will go to a final state Q1 and then stays there only 0 and 1. So this NFA will accept those strings which contain 0, not in the starting or in the end, somewhere in the middle, or it may be in the starting or in the end. Mathematically this is, let's say M2 is the machine having Q, sigma, delta, Q0 and F as a component. Here Q is a set of states, that is Q0 and Q1. Sigma is the input alphabet 0 and 1. Delta will be a table with Q0 as the initial state, Q1 as a final state with input alphabet 0 and 1. Q0 have a transition to Q0 on 1, on Q1 on 0. Q1 has a transition to Q1, right? Either it is 0 or it is 1. We have seen Q, we have seen sigma, we have seen delta. Q0 is the initial state and set of state, final state will have only one state, that is over here, Q1. We have seen two examples. One is an NFA which accepts strings which starts with 0. One more NFA which accepts strings containing 0. Next one is set of strings having 0 at the end. That means this NFA will accept strings which contains 0 at the end. That means 110, 000, anything which ends with 0. Q0 on a 0, it will go to the final state. Here, whether it is a 0 or a 1, it will wait. You see, in this NFA, there is multiple transition with 0 on Q0 itself. It may halt at Q0, it may go to Q1. Now, what is meant by this? When we have multiple zeros, all the initial zeros are ignored and the one which is at the end will be accepted and driving to the final state. From Q1 there are no further transition because it has to be the last zero. That is why in this machine, let's say machine M3, we have Q, sigma, delta, Q0 and F in the following way. Q is having Q0 and Q1. Sigma is containing 0 and 1. Delta is the transition function having Q0 and Q1. You can say that Q0 is mapping to Q1 as well as Q0 on 0, and it is going to Q0 on 1. Q1 is not having any transition further because it is mapping using the final symbol, that is the final 0. If there are more symbols, then it would be rejected. With this, we have mapped Q, sigma, delta, Q0 as the initial state, and the final state will have Q1. With this question, we have done with designing of NFA for simpler questions. In the next video, we will be seeing more complicated questions of designing NFA. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Ekeeda channel and do subscribe.